Hey everyone, it's Strange Michael. I hope you're doing well today. I have a review for the third film of the Halloween franchise, one of the most controversial movies ever made in any history of a franchise ever. Up there with Friday the 13th Part 5, up there with Nightmare on Elm Street, what is it, 6? Yeah, Freddy's Dead, and kind of Part 2. Anyway, this is Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. It came out in 1982. It's directed and co-written by Tommy Lee Wallace, the same man who also brought us the Stephen King 1990s It movie, which I love deeply, for the most part. That movie's not perfect. It's still my favorite It film, but still, really good flick. Halloween 3, Season of the Witch is one of the best films in this entire franchise, possibly, debatably, my favorite of the franchise. I don't know, it's up there with Halloween 1 for me. I love it a lot. Really, really, really eerie, creepy, atmospheric movie that has nothing to do with Michael Myers. Of course, this is a film after the 1981 success the previous year of Halloween 2. John Carpenter originally wanted to make a movie like this for Part 2, to basically make it an anthology series. Every single year you'd have a new movie that would be completely standalone and be different, and different plots, not just a straight-up slasher film, maybe have some of those elements, kind of like how this movie has elements of a slasher type of thing, but do something different every single film involving Halloween. I think it was a wonderful idea. I think I would have been completely fine and happy if we had done that, and I kind of wish we had done that due to some of the films in this franchise, but I'd still typically find a lot of enjoyment in Halloween as a series. This is the 4K Ultra HD set. It is a 2-disc set with a lot of bonus features, a lot of commentaries. I highly recommend this from Scream Factory, Shout Factory, whatever they're called now, in this subcategory of their company. I really love it. I think it's very much worth the money if you want to pick it up for a couple of bucks. Anyway, the film is about an hour and 40 minutes long, and again, it's so dark. It's probably the darkest of the Halloween films alongside Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. It's wonderful. It's absolutely an amazing flick. It is so 1980s. It's so effective. It's the last one, really, before Halloween 2018 that Carpenter was still involved. Aside from getting a creator's rights and probably getting some checks in the mail from these movies, this is really the last one he kind of had his hands on. He also wrote, along with another guy, I think his name was John Neal, I believe. They co-wrote this with Mr. Tommy Lee Wallace. And it's kind of a different movie than what you would expect it to be. I never wanted to see this growing up. I had friends who were big Halloween fans, some of them being older people than me, who said that this movie sucked. And I just waited and waited around and waited around. Eventually, one day on AMC, on one Halloween, when I was probably maybe 10, maybe 11, maybe 9, somewhere in that ballpark, right around the time I started living with my grandparents, when my mom and dad split up. My mom and I moved in with my grandparents, and on one particular Halloween, October, or whatever, I remember this movie playing on TV. And I remember that we taped it with a VHS player. So roughly, we still did that in a VCR type of thing, probably around 2004, 2005, somewhere in there. And we taped this movie. And I remember I watched it. Of course, it was the TV version, so it was kind of censored, but it still had pretty much everything there. It wasn't as censored as movies are nowadays. And I remember watching this movie for the first time ever. Now, mind you, I had an affinity for masks when I was a kid. I loved, particularly because of Billy and Mandy's Jacked Up Halloween, and because of The Hollow, if you've seen that, and because of Sleepy Hollow, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, the old Disney animation. I loved things about movies and whatever with characters that had pumpkins for heads. And as you can tell, there is a mask in this film that happens to be a pumpkin. It's one of the big ones, and I love the colors of the movie too. It really brings those masks to life, of a skull, a witch, and a pumpkin. So this movie immediately, because of the feel of Halloween, because of the feel of October, because of the directing and the writing and everything else that I think are so perfect in this movie being one of the few, I think, in the franchise that are possibly a perfect movie for me. It's phenomenal. It just blew my mind. I knew it had nothing to do with Michael Myers, even though he was referenced here and there with some TV commercials and stuff. But man, I'll tell you, even though it was a standalone movie, even though it was so different from everything we had before it and after it, I love it. I think it's amazing. I think it's such a great horror movie. I think it's such a great Halloween film. That little essence of mysticism and fantasy and particularly science fiction that's involved with this movie, is extremely effective. It's really creepy. But what is this movie about? Well, Mr. Tommy Lee Wallace, who I love deeply, put together one of the best Halloween films of all time, up there with like Hocus Pocus, Nightmare Before Christmas, the Halloween franchise, all these things you watch around this time of the year. This should be a staple of that time of the year. And I pretty much, ever since probably 2 or 3 or 4 years ago, I've watched it pretty much every single Halloween because I love it so much. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. I don't care if we're talking about posters or this particular box set cover. I don't care what we're talking about. The movie is extremely effective. It's very eerie. Everything about it that could come together does come together. There's really not anything but like one plot twist later on in the film I would change. But anyway, what is the film about? Basically involving all these masks that kids are getting. It's a big hot selling item from a place called Silver Shamrock Novelties. And these particular masks have their own commercial, and it's a commercial themed around London's bridge is falling down, that old limerick or whatever. And that commercial will get stuck in your head. That theme song will get stuck in your head. The movie opens up with a prologue for this particular man on the run who turns out to be the father of our main female lead in the movie. We'll talk about her in a moment. He's going on the run. There's some guys in some suits chasing him at nighttime on like the 23rd of October. And this movie builds and builds and builds to Halloween of that year. I assume 1982. I don't know. It's a very 1980s film, by the way. I don't know if I already mentioned that. If you love the 80s, if you love 80s horror, this feels like 1980s horror, even more than Halloween 2 did the year prior. All that feel, that texture of the 1980s, it's all throughout this movie. It's in the veins of the movie, and it really, really, really makes me love it even more, because I love the 80s. I love Breakfast Club. I love Better Off Dead. I love Ferris Bueller. I love all this shit from the 80s. All these movies I love from the horror films that came out at that time. All these things I grew up on, even though I was a 90s kid who really didn't see a lot of those things until I was like 10 and 11 in the 2000s. This movie really sticks with me. It's one of the standouts, even to come out in the early 80s. It really influenced, I think, a lot of things more than people realize. But essentially, after that prologue of this young man, or this older man, getting attacked by these guys, he gets admitted to a hospital by a fellow who's a gas station attendant. And the doctor that happens to be on call that night is Mr. Tom Atkins, who I love deeply. I think he's a phenomenal actor, always a likable guy. I've heard him on things like the Skeleton Crew show, that old podcast that's not around anymore. I love it deeply. You should check that out too if you love horror and you love podcasts. Even if you're like myself and you don't like podcasts, check out the Skeleton Crew. It's hilarious. It was great stuff. I love him to death. Same thing with Banana Laser, another one I love. Tom Atkins just seemed like a very sweet man. Some of the behind-the-scenes stuff on this V8 or this Blu-ray Ultra HD 4K scan, whatever this thing is, he just seems like a very nice man, and I just really like him a lot. I always have. Ever since I saw this film, which is really the first time I think I ever saw him in a movie, I just love the guy. He's just very likable. Anyway, he recently got a divorce. He has 2 kids. And his wife, his ex-wife, happens to be Annie from Halloween 1, which I thought was cool. Miss Loomis herself was in this movie, and she was really solid for what she plays here. The very few moments she's in the movie. They kind of have a little bit of a rocky falling out of this divorce. It's not a perfect situation. The kids kind of like their mom more than him. But he's a doctor, he's busy. It's kind of like he's so busy with that, his career, and focusing on all these women as a selfish guy, that he doesn't really care about the kids and his wife not liking him anymore. It probably brought him to the situation he's currently in. He's kind of a selfish guy. But he gets this particular patient, he gets a call to come in for this old man who's been attacked on like the 23rd or 24th of October. And the man keeps holding onto a silver shamrock pumpkin mask and won't let it go. Well, when he talks to Tom Atkins, the doctor himself, he kind of just makes a mention about these people are coming after him, they're going to kill him. And Tom Atkins goes on a small investigation once he encounters the daughter of this man after he's brutally murdered. Brutally murdered in a horrifying way that you feel every single time you watch it because of the wonderful sound design of this movie. It's very effective. Tom Atkins goes on kind of a hunt with the daughter of this man to find out what is Silver Shamrock Novelties. What are they? What are their masks? What's happening here? Why did they kill this guy? Were they the people who killed this guy in his own hospital? It's a very odd situation. It just gets worse and worse and worse. And it gets tense and more tense and more tense. The tension builds so perfect in this movie. You have the mystery. You have that slasher aspect, even though it's not like a one guy killing everybody type of thing. The casting in this movie is fantastic. I don't care if we're talking about the female lead actress. She does a great job. Tom Atkins is wonderful. The main guy, who I would consider the villain or antagonist, I don't know this guy's name. I heard it a billion times as I looked online and I read different things and saw behind the scenes stuff. The guy plays a fellow named Colin Cochran, and he's phenomenal. He is absolutely phenomenal. He's an Irishman. He doesn't have an Irish accent, but he's an Irishman like myself. And he is amazing. He is so intimidating, but he's also very friendly and businesslike and professional when he needs to be. He is phenomenal. He's like the best part of the movie aside from Tom Atkins. But one of the biggest things are the henchmen. We don't really know much about them until we get further into the film. I don't want to tell you too much about these people, but they are some odd things. They are some odd people. And the film just, I love the way it executes every single mystery about itself. You really only have one by the end of the movie. You really only have one mystery by the end of this film, maybe two, that you really don't understand what happened because it's supposed to be kind of ominous in that degree, have a little fan discussion and debate about those situations. I think the writing is very strong in this movie, and I think everybody's really brought with a lot of character, even side characters, like this one family who are like the biggest salesmen of the Silver Shamrock people, the salesman in that company itself. Those people come in for like a tour type thing, and they just become a big part of the plot later on. You have one saleswoman who's coming up to pick up an order from Silver Shamrock directly, and in the town that they're in, it's a very oddball town. A lot of this movie takes place in that town. It all just, it resonates with you. I don't know how to explain it. Watching it for like the 7th or 8th time in recent years just now, just yesterday as a matter of fact, it really got to me. It still holds onto my brain. Even when I jumped over to Halloween 4 and 5 and seeing Michael Myers come back, you have to think that came 6 years after this movie. 6 whole years. 1988 is when the next one came out. This particular movie is so amazing. I love it. I love the writing of everybody. I love the jokes, especially with Tom Atkins. Some of it might be improv. A lot of it's just really damn good writing from Tommy Lee Wallace, John Carpenter, John Neal, or whatever that fellow's name was. It's a very great concept of this idea about these masks and this company and what they're doing with people, or what they're trying to do possibly with people. It's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. It's rewatchable, man. You can watch this movie so many times, back to back to back. I'll probably watch this again at some point later on in this month because I love it so much. It's just one of those movies like the original Halloween that I just find timeless. I think it's an absolute perfect movie, a timeless movie. Again, there's really one twist in the finale, which I won't spoil for people who haven't seen the movie, because these are spoiler-free reviews. There's one twist towards the end of this film that's revealed. There's a very specific way they go about it that would hold fans to debate it forever. For all these years, for people who still enjoy it, we still talk about it and debate what actually happened there. But the execution is a little wonky, but everything else surrounding it is fascinating to me. I love it. If you've seen the film, you know what I'm talking about a particular character. But I love it. I love the beginning, I love the middle, I love the end. There's never a dull moment throughout the entire film. Every second is utilized perfectly. And I always wonder after I watch this movie, what would Halloween 4 have been if it had not been a Michael Myers movie? If this movie had succeeded the way it deserved, Season of the Witch, what would the next film have been? What would the idea have been? I wish we had some teases for some other Halloween films that could have been made. I wish John Carpenter, after Halloween Ends, would get involved with Blumhouse and make those movies. Make it an anthology thing again. Do something with that. I think it would be such a great idea. I think there's something you could do with that, especially if they feel like this movie. You can't recapture the 80s. It's very, very hard to do that. Stranger Things can't do that perfectly. It'd be interesting to see what they could do with something like that. A lot of those ideas, to be fair, are probably more of something like, you know, a 1980s idea. Maybe They Live was a great example of one. I don't know. But you could have had a really cool idea, and I wish they had made more movies like this movie. Season of the Witch is a classic. It's fantastic. It's well done. It's well acted. It's well written. So many things about it, especially the directing, are just so well put together. I love the look of this movie. It feels, again, like October, like fall, like Halloween. Just like the original Halloween movie. It feels like that time of the year. That's the best thing about it. I love that about this movie. It's just extremely effective. The kills in it are effective. The revelations of different things are really, really effective. The sound design, like I said, is extremely effective. The practical effects in this movie are wonderful. They look amazing. They look so good. I don't care if we're talking about kills. I don't care if we're talking about puppetry or anything like that. Some of the reveals of certain elements of this movie, certain characters in this film, all of that stuff. Even the special effects type stuff, like a CGI type of thing, like lightning or something, all of that typically looks amazing. The only thing I think that was even weak looking in this film was a very clear-cut CGI background of a sky towards the end of the film, like in the final 10 minutes of the movie. Aside from that, everything looks great. Everything. I mean everything to me looked amazing in this movie. And it just adds to how wonderful and effective this is. The music in this movie is really the big thing to hit on too. The music here, to me, even with the opening credits of the movie, which is just a digital screen making out a pumpkin on a screen with lines, the music that was done for this by John Carpenter was so effective and so brilliant. It's eerie, it's ominous again, like I said. It's dark, it lingers, just like that original Halloween theme song. And that original theme is only heard in this movie on commercials for the original Halloween movie, played within the movie of this movie. As if Halloween and Halloween 2 are movies within this universe of this movie. It's weird. It's weird, man. It's like a picture-in-picture thing. You'll be walking by a TV in this movie and have a character walk by or whatever, and you'll see in the background Halloween playing at like a bar or something. It's pretty cool. I like that a lot. But the music in this movie is so wonderful. It just sticks with you. It's not just the Silver Shamrock music for the commercials. It's everything else. It's the theme songs of it. It's that, I don't even know how to describe it. The synth music to this movie is just breathtaking. That's really it. It's really a breathtaking type of soundtrack that you'll never forget. If you've seen this movie one time, you remember the music. I promise you. You might remember little things here and there, little nuggets of the movie, but you will remember that music till the day you die. It's just effective. It didn't catch on the way the Halloween theme song did from the original 2 movies, mainly the original 78 movie, but I'll tell you, this one will linger with you, and it really haunts my soul a little bit. I'm telling you, this possibly to me, as much as I love the original movie, as much as I love a lot of films in this franchise, the music and everything about this movie might haunt me and linger with me more. It might be the most rewatchable of the whole franchise. It's just something, there's something with this movie that just, it creeps me out. And again, things that I loved when I was a kid that I would find interesting in this movie, like the Pumpkinhead thing, it sticks with you. It just stuck with me. I think if you don't even have the infatuation with certain ideas like masks and stuff that are in this movie, it's going to stick with you. Just because of how wonderfully well-crafted it is, how wonderfully made it is. It's just a fantastic, creepy, haunting, darker than the rest of the series most of the time movie that I don't know how anybody on the entire face of the earth could hate this project. It is a fantastic classic of a movie, and I will defend it until the day I die. I've been defending this since I was a kid when I finally saw it, no matter what my older friends said about it. Halloween 3 Season of the Witch is a classic of its time. It's a classic that's timeless for the most part. And I would say that, again, the only flaw I find in this, that one plot twist about a character in this movie. Everything else about it, I love. It's one of those things like Phantasm 1, the original Phantasm, that I just love deeply. There's just something about it that just really sticks with me, even more than the original Halloween movie. Again, I'm not really sure in my brain. I have a list going, but I'm not really sure what I rank this one compared to the original Halloween movie. And when I finish all these reviews, as I said in my previous videos, I will rank them all. But it's very possible this could be my favorite Halloween movie. It's very, very possible I could rank this higher than that original movie. No matter my memories and my nostalgia of that movie, I have memories and nostalgia with this one too. I love this movie. I think it's perfect compared to that original Halloween film. I'm not saying right now that it's better. I haven't really decided for me personally. It might change depending on the day I'm waking up and thinking about these movies, but Halloween 3 Season of the Witch is so great, and I cannot believe that fanboys out there are so butthurt about this movie to this day, and are still so mad that even Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills even showed the masks from this cover here, the skull, the witch, and the pumpkin, in the newer movies. That's how pissed people still are about this thing. And it technically killed the franchise for a very long time. Again, about 6 years until 1988's Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers came out. The rights had to revert back to like John Carpenter or Mustafa Akkad, excuse me. And it's a shame. It's a shame in my opinion. Halloween 3 Season of the Witch deserved better. It's a great flick. It's extremely rewatchable. Again, I'll probably rewatch it later on in the year again, or later on in the month, a couple of weeks down the road. I love it. I recommend it highly. If you haven't seen the film before, please do not skip this. For folks out there who just want to see Michael Myers, experience this movie. If you've never watched it before and you love the Halloween franchise, just pretend like this isn't part of it. Just pretend. Watch the movie. It is phenomenal. Anyway, Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. If I had to rate this film on a 5-star basis, as I've been doing on my channel, I would probably give it about a 5 out of 5 stars. I love it. Yeah, it has one plot twist that kind of concerns me, but it's still debatable around that situation. Everything else about it, I love. I think it's so perfect. It's so perfect in such every single possible way you could think about it. It's a classic, and I hold it very dear to my heart. I'm glad I have this 4K set from Scream Factory, Shout Factory, whatever they're called. I'm getting very hoarse, as you can tell. I need to go to bed because my voice is going away. My videos are too long. You ever notice that? I always lose my voice when I'm recording so many at one time, in one go, back to back. 5 out of 5 stars for me. Please watch this Halloween. If you haven't seen it before, you are missing out. If you haven't seen it in a long time, you're missing out. Check it out. Anyway, what are your thoughts on this movie? Put your thoughts in comments down below, folks. I would love to hear what you guys have to say about this amazing little flick that I've loved and watched so many times in my life. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. God bless you guys. Happy Halloween, and goodbye.